Hey, welcome to DA Mailbag 0004. This one comes from a catering operation, and I want to start right where the pressure showed up. Both chefs had emergencies at the same time. Both had to be out of the kitchen. The company still had work in motion, and the only people left to carry it were 3 staff members with different levels of experience in the food business. That is not a theoretical staffing problem. That is the kind of moment where the clock keeps moving even after the people who normally control the work are gone. Food is already in production. Ingredients are already committed. The service window does not care what happened that morning. The client is still expecting the order. The team still has to prep, cook, hold, pack, move, finish, and deliver. And when that happens, the first answer people usually reach for is simple: cross-train the staff. That answer is not wrong, it is just incomplete. Because saying cross-train the staff does not tell this owner where to begin, what to protect, who should learn what should remain with the chefs, how much authority the staff should receive, or how to create real time off for 2 people who may already spend 10 to 12 hours a day on their feet. So that is what I want to work through, not the slogan, the sequence, not the fantasy that 3 people can all become interchangeable with 2 chefs in a few weeks. The actual path toward a kitchen that can absorb an absence without losing control. Before I go any further, I want to be respectful about the 2 chefs. We do not know what either emergency involved. We do not know what production had already started. We do not know whether this was a small delivery, a full-service event, a wedding, a corporate lunch, a plated dinner, or a combination of several jobs moving through the kitchen at once. We do not know whether the chefs left before prep began, halfway through the day, or when the most difficult work had already been completed. We do not know how much the 3 staff members successfully handled. We do not know whether the event went out on time. We do not know whether the staff made smart decisions under pressure, whether they had to reduce scope, whether quality slipped, or whether they simply worked far beyond what should have been expected of them. That means we do not get to turn this into a story about 2 chefs who failed to prepare their people. We also do not get to turn it into a story about 3 employees who were not ready. We do not know enough for that. What we do know is that kitchen leadership is hard work. 10 to 12 hours in a hot production environment is not a casual work day. It means standing, lifting, tasting, checking, correcting, moving, answering, planning, cleaning, solving, and watching the clock while everyone else is also watching you. The work is physical. The timing is unforgiving. The margin for error can be small. Beyond the food itself, those chefs may be carrying menu design, ordering, yields, labor, assignments, quality control, client changes, allergy requirements, prep sequence, final release, staff coaching, and every difficult judgment call that no checklist can fully explain. Then we add one more expectation: develop the team while doing all of that. That part gets underestimated. Growing a staff is not something that happens because people stand near an experienced chef. Proximity is not development. Watching someone move fast is not the same as understanding why they made the next decision. Repeating a recipe is not the same as controlling a production day. Following instructions is not the same as directing the operation when the person who usually gives those instructions is gone. So I want to give the chefs credit up front. If they have built a company, maintained clients, kept a kitchen moving, and helped 3 people grow to different levels of capability, they have already done something difficult. The question is not whether they are valuable. The question is whether the company has become too dependent on that value being physically present every hour the kitchen is working. That is a different question. The visible problem is that both chefs were gone. The deeper failure point may be that the operation did not have a defined level of service it could still execute when both chefs were gone. That difference matters. If the owner reads this only as a staffing emergency, the response will probably be, "We need everyone trained on more things." If the owner reads it as a capability design problem, the response becomes much sharper. What must this kitchen be able to do without either chef? What can it safely do? What should it never attempt without one of them? Who can lead the work? Who can carry the technical load? What should be written down? What must be practiced? What should trigger a call? What should trigger a menu reduction? What should trigger an outside chef? And what should trigger a decision to stop, change the service, or protect the client before the team gets trapped? That is where we need to go. Let me make the scenario more concrete. Imagine the day begins with 2 chefs and 3 staff members scheduled. One staff member has several years around food service and is strong on preparation. Another has less time in the business but is organized, steady, and good at keeping track of what is done and what is late. The third is newer, willing, and dependable, but still needs direction when the work changes quickly. Then the first emergency hits. One chef has to leave. The remaining chef absorbs the gap. They move from station work into coordination. They start answering more questions, checking more batches, and making more decisions. The 3 staff members continue working, but the operating rhythm changes because one person is now carrying the judgment that used to be shared by 2. Then the second emergency hits. Now, the kitchen does not simply lose another pair of hands, it loses the person holding the full picture. The staff may know their tasks, they may know recipes, they may know what was scheduled, but who now has the authority to change the sequence? Who decides whether the protein can wait while the sides move first? Who confirms the allergy order? Who decides whether a substitute ingredient will still meet the client expectation? Who controls the loadout? Who calls the owner if the team is 30 minutes behind? Who says the menu has to be reduced before the delay becomes unrecoverable? That is where many operations make the visible misread. They see an experience gap and assume the answer is more technical training, but technical skill is only one part of the loss. When both chefs leave, the kitchen may also lose coordination, prioritization, interpretation, authority, and escalation control. That is why a staff member can be very good at cooking and still not be ready to run the kitchen. And it is why the most senior employee is not automatically the best acting lead. And the company has 3 people. That is enough to create some depth, but is not enough to waste training effort. Every hour spent developing the wrong capability has a cost. Every responsibility assigned to the wrong person creates a new failure point. Every vague instruction adds friction when the kitchen is already under pressure. So the owner needs to resist the urge to begin with a training calendar. The first move is to reconstruct what happened, not to blame anyone, to learn from the exposure. Sit down with the 2 chefs and the 3 staff members separately first, then together. Ask each person to walk through the day from the moment the first chef left. What work was already complete? What was in progress? What had not started? What decisions were waiting? What did the staff understand immediately? Where did they hesitate? What did they need from the chefs? What did they solve on their own? What did they do that worked? Where did they have to improvise? What created the most stress? What caused the most delay? What quality concern appeared? What information was missing? Who naturally stepped forward? Who became overloaded? Who stayed focused on a station and missed the wider picture? Who noticed the whole kitchen but lacked the technical confidence to direct it? That review matters because the emergency already gave the company a live test. Do not throw away that information by reducing the lesson to "we need cross-training." The staff may have revealed more capability than the owner realized. One person may have become the communication hub. One person may have maintained production quality. One person may have kept the packing sequence from breaking. Or the opposite may have happened. The person everyone assumed would lead may have frozen because they had never been given authority. The technically strongest person may have buried themselves in one task while the rest of the kitchen drifted. The newer employee may have done exactly what they were told, but had no one left to tell them what came next. Those details tell the owner where to build. Once that day is reconstructed, the chefs need to map the work they actually own. And I mean the real work, not the job description. Start before the kitchen. Who interprets the event order? Who checks the final guest count? Who catches the change that came in late? Who notices that the special die count does not match the packing labels? Who translates the menu into production quantities? Who knows the yield loss on the protein? Who knows which sauce can be held and which one will break? Who knows which item can be finished early and which one must stay close to service? Who sees that the oven schedule will collide 40 minutes before anyone else notices? Who knows which product shortage is inconvenient and which one changes the entire menu and then move into production? Who sets the sequence? Who decides where each of the 3 staff members starts? Who watches the prep list and the clock at the same time? Who moves labor when one station falls behind? Who checks seasoning and texture? Who verifies that a correction worked? Who decides whether a batch can be recovered? Who makes the call to start over? Who protects the allergy order from cross-contact? Who controls hot holding, cold holding, cooling, and reheating decisions? Who knows what can be packed first without hurting quality? Who verifies that every pan, tray, garnish, sauce, label, utensil, and piece of service equipment is actually leaving with the order? Then move beyond the kitchen. Who talks to the client if the count changes? Who explains a substitution? Who coordinates the delivery timing? Who decides whether the team can still meet the promised service window? Who alerts the owner when the problem has moved beyond the kitchen and into the customer relationship? That is the dependency map. The reason I'm pressing this hard is because small operations often carry more dependency than they realize. The chefs do the difficult work because they are the fastest at it. They answer the question because the answer is immediate. They fix the batch because the event is close. They take the call because the client trusts them. They change the plan because they can see the entire chain. None of that is careless. It is efficient. But efficiency can quietly build a business that only works when the same people keep showing up. The better the chefs are, the easier it is for everyone around them to depend on their speed. That is the trap. A strong chef can hide a weak operating system for a long time, not because they are doing anything wrong, but because their competence covers the gaps. The day both chefs were absent, the cover came off. Now the company has a choice. It can admire how hard everyone worked, return to normal, and hope the same combination does not happen again. Or it can use the event to build a more honest operating model. The honest model begins with limits. What can this 3-person staff execute right now without either chef? Do not answer with optimism. Answer with evidence. Can they complete a familiar cold lunch order? Can they handle a standard buffet menu with all prep completed? Can they run a small delivery where no on-site finishing is required? Can they execute a routine production block if the chefs have already set quantities, sequence, and standards? Can they handle a full event from order review through final release? Those are different levels of capability. The company needs to define them. I would build 3 operating levels. Level 1 is staff-supported production. At least one chef is present. The staff owns assigned stations, routine checks, and defined portions of the event. This is where normal development should happen. Level 2 is staff-led routine production. Neither chef is physically directing every move. A qualified staff lead controls a familiar menu, established quantities, known equipment, and a manageable service window. A chef may be available for defined escalation, but the team is expected to operate independently inside the approved plan. Level 3 is chef-required production. This includes new menus, complex techniques, high-risk dietary requirements, large guest counts, demanding presentation, multiple simultaneous events, tight turnaround, or any combination that exceeds the staff's validated capability. That structure protects everyone. It tells the owner what can be booked during planned absences. It tells the chefs which work can be released. It tells the staff where their authority begins and ends. And it tells the client-facing side of the company when operational reality has to shape the promise. Because there is another failure point we need to be honest about. A kitchen cannot be resilient if the sales promise ignores the production capability. If the company books a complex event during a period when both chefs are scheduled off, no amount of goodwill from the 3 staff members will erase that mismatch. Time off has to be connected to menu complexity, guest count, labor, and production risk. You do not protect the chefs by telling them they can take leave while continuing to book the same workload as if they were present. That is not time off. That is a delayed recall. After the operating levels are defined, assess the 3 staff members, and do this without forcing them into identical development paths. The first staff member may have strong food knowledge. They may understand knife work, prep, batch production, timing, temperatures, and consistency. They may be the person others trust when a product does not look right. That person may be a strong technical backup, but do they want to direct peers? Can they step away from their station and see the room? Can they make a decision with incomplete information? Can they communicate a change without creating confusion? Technical confidence and leadership confidence are not the same. The second staff member may be less experienced in the food business, but strong in organization. They may notice that the prep list is slipping. They may track the order accurately. They may communicate early. They may stay calm when another person becomes rushed. They may not be able to correct every culinary problem, but they may be the best person to control sequence and keep the team aligned. That person may be the developing kitchen lead. The third staff member may be newer. They may not be ready to lead or make quality decisions, but they can still become highly valuable by mastering repeatable support functions. They can own ingredient pulls, labels, packaging, equipment checks, standard prep, cleanup sequence, inventory confirmation, or loadout control. In a three-person team, reliable support is not a small role. If the acting lead has to stop coordinating so they can search for lids, verify labels, or find missing utensils, the whole structure begins to collapse. The third person can protect the flow by becoming dependable where the operation loses time. This is why blanket cross-training is not the answer. The company does not need 3 partial chefs. It needs 3 people with complementary capability. One person who can hold the picture, one person who can protect the technical standard, one person who can keep the support flow from becoming the constraint. Over time, those lanes can overlap. The lead should gain more technical skill. The technical backup should learn more coordination. The support specialist should expand into production. But the first objective is not equality, it is coverage. Now let's talk about training order, because this is where the owner asks the most important question. Where do we start? Start with the decisions that carry the highest consequence, not the tasks that are easiest to demonstrate. That is a different training philosophy. It is easy to teach another recipe. It is harder to teach when to stop, when to call, when to reassign, when to reject, and when to simplify. The first training block should be event orientation. Every staff member should understand the complete event before touching their station. What are we producing? For how many people? What is the service style? What time must the food leave? What are the dietary requirements? What cannot be substituted? What items are time sensitive? What is the greatest risk today? What would force us to contact the client? This briefing does not need to be long. It needs to be consistent. 5 to 10 minutes at the start of a production day can prevent hours of confusion later. The second training block should be production sequence. The developing lead needs to learn how the chefs turn a menu into a time plan. Not just what begins first, why it begins first. What depends on it, what can move in parallel, what has to wait. Where equipment becomes a constraint, where labor becomes a constraint, where holding time affects quality, where the schedule has built-in recovery room, and where it has none. The chef should make that thinking visible. A useful way to do this is to take one familiar event and have the developing lead build the sequence before the chef does. Then compare the 2 plans. Where did the employee start too much at once? Where did they forget cooling or holding time? Where did they create an oven conflict? Where did they assign the same person to 2 critical tasks at the same time? Where did they leave no room for packing? That comparison teaches more than standing beside the chef, while the chef silently makes every decision. The third training block should be control points. The staff needs to know where the operation must stop and verify before moving. That may include final count confirmation, allergy separation, temperature verification, batch quality, packaging accuracy, equipment completeness, and final release. The company should not build a 100-point checklist. It should identify the few points where a miss creates the largest consequence. For example, a mislabeled dietary meal may create a serious guest risk. A missing garnish may be disappointing, but it is not the same level of consequence. A 30-minute delay on one side item may be recoverable. A 30-minute delay on the central protein may change the entire service plan. The staff needs to understand that difference. The fourth training block should be escalation. This is where many developing employees fail, not because they lack effort, but because nobody has defined the trigger. Tell them exactly when they should call a chef, the owner, or another support contact. Call when the allergy requirement cannot be verified. Call when the team is more than a defined amount behind the production schedule. Call when a substitute will materially change the client's order. Call when equipment failure removes a critical cooking method. Call when quality cannot be recovered inside the remaining time. Call when staffing drops below the minimum level required for the approved menu. Call before the situation becomes impossible to fix. That last point is important. Newer staff often wait because they want to prove they can handle the problem. By the time they ask for help, the options are gone. Training has to teach that early escalation is a sign of control, not weakness. The fifth training block should be role movement. In a kitchen emergency, people cannot remain attached to the task they started if the priority is changed. The developing lead needs to practice moving someone without creating an argument. The technical backup needs to practice leaving a preferred task when the wider kitchen needs help. The support person needs to understand which duties can pause and which cannot. This can be practiced during normal production. The chef can intentionally ask the developing lead to rebalance the team at a known checkpoint. Who moves? What work pauses? What risk increases? What must be communicated? The sixth training block should be quality judgment. This is the area where the chef's experience may be hardest to transfer. Quality is not only a recipe measurement, it is texture, temperature, timing, appearance, taste, stability, and fit for the service window. And the staff needs exposure to acceptable variation. Show them what good looks like. Show them what is still recoverable. Show them what cannot be served. Show them the difference between a preference and a standard. And that matters because an acting lead can create unnecessary waste if they reject anything that does not look exactly like the chef's personal style. They can also create client damage if they accept a product that has crossed the company's standard. The chef has to teach the line. The seventh training block should be final release. Who confirms that the food is complete? Who confirms the count? Who confirms the special meals? Who confirms the temperature? Who confirms the packaging? Who confirms the service equipment? Who confirms the load order? One person needs to own the final check, not 5 people assuming someone else did it. That person may not be the acting lead on every event, but the responsibility must be named. The company should not teach all 7 blocks at once. That would create noise. Use one familiar event each week as the training platform. Week 1, the developing lead builds the sequence. Week 2, they run the opening briefing. Week 3, they own the mid-production check. Week 4, they direct one labor shift. Week 5, they control the final release. Week 6, they lead the event while one chef observes. That sequence allows the person to build control in layers. The technical backup can follow a similar path. Week 1, they own one high-value product. Week 2, they teach the support employee a repeatable task. Week 3, they make a recovery decision under supervision. Week 4, they verify quality across more than one station. Week 5, they handle a known substitution. Week 6, they support the acting lead during a controlled absence. The support person should also have a clear path. Master the event control package. Own ingredient pools. Own labels and packing materials. Own equipment confirmation. Own one prep category. Own the loadout checklist. Then expand into a second prep category and a basic quality check. The point is not to lock people into small roles. The point is to give them a development sequence they can actually complete. One more thing about training. The chefs need protected time. Not a full day every week, not a classroom program. Protected moments inside the work. If the owner expects the chefs to train only after the production day ends, the training will either disappear or push already exhausted people deeper into burnout. Build training into the schedule. 15 minutes before the shift to review the event. 10 minutes at the production midpoint to let the developing lead report status. 20 minutes after selected events to debrief. One lower risk event each month where the staff carries more authority. One planned chef off block where the remaining structure is tested. Small repeated development will outperform occasional large training sessions that the kitchen cannot sustain, and the chefs need support in becoming trainers. Do not assume they know how to explain judgment just because they have judgment. Ask them to narrate decisions. What are you seeing? What made you move that person? What changed your sequence? What told you the batch needed correction? What would have made you call the client? Those questions pull experience out of instinct and turn it into teachable language. That is how expertise becomes organizational capability. Now we need to address the part that usually creates tension. Authority. The staff cannot be held accountable for running the kitchen if they are not allowed to make decisions. At the same time, the company cannot hand broad authority to someone who has not been tested, so build authority by level. At the first level, the staff member can execute the approved plan. They can assign known tasks, follow the schedule, complete standard checks, and escalate exceptions. At the second level, they can adjust labor, change the sequence inside defined limits, use approved substitutions, and correct routine quality problems. At the third level, they can make broader decisions about menu reduction, client communication, outside support, or stopping production. That third level may remain with a chef or the owner for a long time. That is fine. The key is that everyone knows the boundary. Nothing is more dangerous in a small operation than responsibility without authority or authority without preparation. The acting lead should not have to guess whether they can move a staff member. The technical backup should not have to guess whether they can reject a batch. The support person should not have to guess whether a missing item is serious enough to report. Clear authority reduces hesitation. Clear limits reduce reckless improvisation. Now let's move to the time off question. How do both chefs eventually get time away without compromising performance? Start by changing the goal. The goal is not both chefs can be off during any event. That is too broad. The goal is the company can identify which work can be executed safely and profitably during a dual chef absence, then schedule, staff, and book accordingly. That is a business model. The first stage is protected time for one chef. Choose a routine production day. Use a familiar menu. Keep the guest count within normal range. Have the developing lead run the opening briefing and production sequence. The remaining chef stays present but does not carry every routine decision. This gives one chef true time away while the other chef and the staff learn how the coverage model works. After several successful repetitions, increase the distance. The remaining chef should shift out of constant supervision. They may own the most technical items and final release while the staff lead controls flow, then rotate. The other chef takes time away. The staff needs to prove the system works with either chef absent, not only with the one who usually delegates more easily. The second stage is a short dual chef absence during a low-risk production block. Maybe 2 or 3 hours, maybe prep for a familiar order, maybe a standard lunch delivery. The chefs are not in the kitchen. The staff lead owns the plan. The technical backup owns quality. The support person owns material and packing flow. A chef may be reachable for a defined emergency, but routine questions wait until the debrief. That last condition matters. If the staff calls every 10 minutes, the chefs are not off. They are remote supervisors. The purpose of the test is to see what the team can truly hold. The third stage is a full routine event without either chef physically present. This should only happen after the earlier tests are stable. Use a menu the team has repeated. Avoid a new client if possible. Avoid unusual dietary complexity. Avoid the largest guest count. Avoid simultaneous jobs. Confirm ingredients and equipment early. Complete the event control package. Name the acting lead. Name the technical backup. Name the outside contact. Define the point where the owner must be notified, then let the team operate. The chefs should not be punished by having to watch their phones the entire day. If the company requires one of them to remain on call, that should be a defined standby role, not an invisible expectation attached to every day off. The fourth stage is scheduling full time off around operating capacity. This may require the company to limit bookings. That is the part some owners resist. They want resilience without changing volume. They want both chefs off while the same number of events, same menu complexity, and same production pressure remain in place. That may not be realistic with 3 staff members. Cross-training can increase flexibility. It cannot manufacture labor hours. If 2 chefs normally contribute 20 combined hours of physical and decision-making work on a heavy day, 3 staff members cannot absorb all of that simply because they attended training. The owner has to separate skill capacity from labor capacity. Skill capacity asks you that, do they know how? Labor capacity asks, do they have enough time and enough people? Both matter. The company may need to cap guest count during dual chef absence. It may offer a limited menu. It may accept delivery-only events and avoid on-site service. It may block certain dates. It may bring in a contract chef. It may use a former employee who already knows the operation. It may develop a relationship with another local culinary professional. It may add a part-time kitchen lead during peak seasons. Those are not admissions that cross-training failed. They are controls that make the time-off plan credible. Let's build the PACE plan. PACE means primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. The primary plan is normal operations with at least one chef present. The staff is still developing, but selected responsibilities are already delegated. The developing lead runs the briefing. The technical backup owns defined quality checks. The support person owns event materials and loadout control. The chef is not doing everything simply because they are present. That is important. If the staff only practices when the chefs are absent, the capability will develop too slowly. The alternate plan is one chef absent, the remaining chef and the staff lead divide the kitchen. The chef owns the high-risk culinary work, complex quality decisions, and final escalation. The staff lead owns sequence, assignments, progress checks, and communication. The technical backup supports both. The support person protects the physical flow. The contingency plan is both chefs absent for an approved event. The event must fit the staff-led routine production level. The menu is familiar. The guest count is within the validated range. Ingredients and equipment are confirmed. The event control package is complete. The acting lead owns the kitchen. The technical backup owns product standard. The support person owns material, packing, and movement. The owner or designated contact remains available for business decisions. The emergency plan is used when the event exceeds the staff's approved capability or when conditions change. Maybe a staff member also calls out. Maybe a critical piece of equipment fails. Maybe the client adds volume. Maybe an allergy requirement appears late. Maybe the team falls too far behind. At that point, the business should not keep improvising until the choices disappear. The emergency options may include activating a contract chef, reducing menu scope with client approval, changing service format, purchasing selected items from an approved partner, moving work to another kitchen, delaying with honest communication, or declining a portion of the commitment that cannot be executed safely. The emergency plan is not the plan nobody wants to discuss. It is the plan that protects the company from pretending. A business loses trust faster through a silent failure than through an early controlled conversation. Now I want to return to the two chefs, because the time off part has a human side. People who become essential often carry guilt when they step away. They know the team will feel the gap. They know the owner may call. They know the work may take longer. They know a client may ask for them by name. So even when they take time off, they stay mentally connected to the kitchen. That is not real recovery. The business has to create a release standard. A chef is off when the event is inside the approved staff capability, the acting lead is named, the event control package is complete, the escalation contact is assigned, and the chef is not expected to answer routine questions. If the chef must remain reachable for true emergencies, define what counts as an emergency. Do not let "what pan should we use" become a reason to interrupt family time. Do not let "we are 10 minutes behind" become a recall. Do not let every uncertainty become the chef's burden. The team should use the plan, make the decisions within its authority, and document the questions for the debrief. That is how the chefs learn to trust the system. And trust may be the hardest part. A chef who has spent years protecting quality may struggle to watch someone else use a different method. They may step in too early. They may correct every small difference. They may unintentionally train the staff to wait. That does not make them controlling. It means they have been held responsible for the result. The owner has to help distinguish a true standard violation from a preference. If the food is safe, on time, within quality, and consistent with the client promise, the staff may not need to mirror every motion the chef would have made. That is part of letting capability grow. At the same time, the staff has to earn trust. They need to follow the system. They need to report honestly. They need to resist shortcuts. They need to accept correction without becoming defensive. They need to demonstrate that independence does not mean doing whatever feels easiest. Trust grows from repeated control, not one speech. Now there is a second visible misread we need to avoid. The owner may look at the emergency and think the staff handled it, so maybe we are already fine. Be careful. A team can survive one difficult day through extra effort, adrenaline, and personal sacrifice. That does not prove the operating model is sustainable. Maybe they stayed 3 hours late. Maybe one person skipped breaks. Maybe quality held because the menu happened to be familiar. Maybe the chefs answered calls all day. Maybe the owner stepped in. Maybe the client was flexible. Those conditions may not repeat. The debrief needs to ask not only did we complete the event, ask what did completion cost, how much overtime, how much stress, how many calls, how much rework, how close were we to missing the service window, what risk did we accept, what part depended on luck. That question exposes the difference between resilience and survival. A resilient operation absorbs disruption inside known limits. A surviving operation gets through the day and hopes nobody looks too closely at the cost. The goal is resilience. So let me give the owner a 90-day development sequence. The first 30 days are about visibility, reconstruct the emergency, map chef-owned decisions, define the 3 operating levels, assess the 3 staff members, choose the developing lead, technical backup, and flexible support lane. Build the first event control package. Begin the daily 5 to 10 minute event brief. Do not schedule a dual chef absence yet. The second 30 days are about guided ownership. The developing lead builds production sequences for familiar events. The technical backup owns selected quality checks. The support person owns material, packaging, and loadout control. One chef steps back from routine decisions during lower risk work. The team conducts a short debrief after each selected event. The owner reviews workload and compensation if responsibilities have changed materially. The third 30 days are about controlled release. Schedule one chef off during approved events. Then schedule short dual chef absence blocks. Use only familiar menus. Keep the guest count inside the staff's capability. Track calls, delays, quality, overtime, and missed items. At the end of 90 days, decide whether the staff is ready for a full routine event without either chef. If not, do not force it. Identify the gap. Maybe the lead needs more decision practice. Maybe the technical backup needs more quality range. Maybe the support flow is still too weak. Maybe the business needs an outside culinary resource. The 90-day mark is a decision point, not a deadline for pretending. After that, move into sustainment. Rotate responsibilities enough to prevent skill loss. Repeat staff-led events. Update the event package. Add new menus slowly. Revalidate after long gaps. Review the pace plan before peak seasons. Keep an updated list of outside culinary support. And protect actual time off on the calendar. Now let's imagine the stronger version of the same emergency. Both chefs have to leave again. The owner checks the event. It is a familiar buffet for a known client. The guest count is inside the staff-led limit. The menu uses recipes the team has executed repeatedly. The event control package is complete. The acting lead has run 3 similar productions. The technical backup has been validated on the central dishes. The support person has owned loadout successfully. The chefs leave. The acting lead calls the team together. They confirm the menu, count, service time, dietary meals, major risks, and decision limits. They look at the production board. One item is already behind. The lead moves the support person for 20 minutes, then restores them to packaging before the shift creates a new problem. The technical backup catches a consistency issue early and corrects it while there is still time. A supplier item is short, the approved substitution is listed, the lead uses it without calling the chefs. Packing begins on time. The final release check catches one missing dietary label. The team corrects it. The vehicle leaves within the planned window. The chefs are informed after the event, not pulled back into it. That is not a kitchen proving it does not need chefs. That is a kitchen proving the chefs built capability. Now imagine a different event. The guest count increased. The menu includes a new item. One staff member calls out. The oven fails. The team is already behind. This event is now outside the approved staff-led condition. The acting lead does not try to be heroic. They activate the emergency plan. The owner brings in the contract chef. One menu item is changed with client approval. The service format is simplified. The team protects the critical dishes and the dietary requirements. The client receives early communication. The event continues under a controlled revision. That is also success. Success is not always executing the original plan unchanged. Sometimes success is recognizing early that the plan no longer fits reality and adjusting before the customer experiences the full failure. That is the operating discipline this company needs, and it starts with one decision. Stop treating cross-training as a general idea. Turn it into a capability map. Who can do what? Under what conditions? With what authority? To what standard? For how long? With what backup? And what happens when the conditions move outside that limit? Those questions make the plan real. Now, what should the owner do tomorrow? First, thank the 3 staff members for stepping into the emergency. Not with a vague compliment, ask them what they carried. Recognize the actual work. Second, meet with the two chefs. Start with respect. Tell them the purpose is to protect them and the company, not to audit their worth. Third, reconstruct the event. Write down the work, decisions, gaps, calls, delays, and successful recoveries. Fourth, choose one familiar event as the training platform. Do not redesign the entire kitchen at once. Fifth, identify the first responsibility to transfer. My recommendation is the opening event brief and production status control. Why start there? Because the developing lead needs the whole picture before they can make good decisions. 6. Build one page of the event control package. Do not wait for perfection. Use it, learn from it, improve it. 7th, schedule the first controlled one chef absence. Make it small enough to learn, serious enough to matter. 8th, conduct the debrief. 9th, adjust the role boundaries. And 10th, repeat. That is the sequence, not flashy, not instant, but real. There is a leadership lesson inside this kitchen problem that reaches beyond catering. When the most experienced people become the permanent answer to every difficult situation, the organization may look strong while becoming increasingly fragile. The experts keep saving the day, everyone trusts them, the work gets done, the customer remains happy. But the experts cannot leave. They cannot rest. They cannot develop others at the pace the business needs. And the staff cannot fully grow because the hardest decisions keep returning to the same hands. That is not a character failure. It is a design failure. The solution is not to push the experts out of the center. The solution is to make their judgment teachable, their standards visible, their authority distributable, and their absence survivable inside defined conditions. That is what this catering company has the opportunity to do now. The emergency exposed the dependency. The 3 staff members expose the available starting point. The chefs hold the experience. The owner controls the structure. Put those pieces together carefully. Respect the work, name the limits, train in sequence, release responsibility in layers, reduce the menu when capacity is reduced, bring in outside support when the situation exceeds the team, and protect time off as an operational requirement, not a favor the chefs receive only when nothing is happening, because something is always happening. The calendar will keep filling, clients will keep calling, events will keep changing, equipment will fail, people will have family emergencies, people will get sick, people will need recovery. A company that depends on perfect attendance is not prepared. A company that builds controlled coverages. So let me close with the direct answer. Where should the caterer start? Not with broad cross-training. Start by mapping what disappears when both chefs leave. Then define which events the 3-person staff can safely execute today. Select one developing lead, one technical backup, and one flexible support lane based on demonstrated strengths. Train the event picture first, then sequence, control points, escalation, labor movement, quality judgment, and final release. Give authority in levels. Test one chef off. Then test short dual chef absences. Then test one full routine event. Use a primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency plan. Reduce volume or menu complexity when the chefs are off. Build outside culinary support before it is needed. And do not call the system ready until the staff can perform without constant remote rescue. That is how the chefs get time off without pretending their work is easy. That is how the staff grows without being set up to fail. That is how the company protects the client without relying on heroics. And that is how one difficult day becomes more than a story about who was missing. It becomes the day the business learned what it had to build next. This has been DA Mailbag 0004. A resilient kitchen is not one where every person can do every job. It is one where the team understands the event. The work has a qualified owner, the standards remain visible, the limits are respected, and the operation knows exactly what to do when the plan changes. Build that kitchen, then let the chefs step away without the company falling apart.